Turnover!
What is up, coaches, cheerleaders, and or Warp Spawn? We're here with a couple of the members of Team USA. We've got the infamous Bryan 2 and the equally infamous Sol. How y'all guys doing?
Fantastic. Thanks, Steve.
Doing good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. So I heard you made a little excursion over to Greece. Just a little one.
Little excursion.
Overall, how was the trip?
Well, our trip was fantastic. I mean, for me, I made it a vacation. When I'm traveling for Blood Bowl, I'm gonna make it a vacation, baby.
Yeah.
I met my daughter in Crete, a few other guys as well. We were able to travel around a little bit before we got to Athens. So we were just having a great time prior to the tournament, and then tournament was icing on the cake.
That's
How about
good.
you, John?
Yeah, it went pretty well, quite frankly. So, showed up in Greece, got to experience the culture, visited the Parthenon, visited the prison of Socrates, got to free solo for my first time. So that was fun. Scaled a 50-foot cliff face, and then showed up to a Blood Bowl tournament. Very nice, as I mentioned earlier, of my teammates to let me almost die beforehand. That would have been a really fun showing for Team USA.
We get this message from TJ that
Yeah.
wall is free climbing the night before we start the tournament. We're all just freaking out, like, please don't let him die. Please.
There wasn't there. I'll tell you something. There wasn't a damn thing you could do by that point. If I fell, there, TJ's not catching that. He's a strong
TJ.
man. He ain't catching that. But,
I have faith in him.
yeah, that was. I should apologize. That was really inconsiderate of me. I really didn't think about it from that angle. Sorry.
He did get some great video though. It was pretty cool, really impressive.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But yeah.
So other than the near-death experience, what's anything particularly memorable or any moments just from the travel perspective that you enjoyed?
The food, man. The
Yeah.
food was better. Yeah, the quality of just even basic ingredients. The milk there is better than anything I've tasted over here in the States. Can't
Okay.
figure out why. Yeah. But the food was nice. Oh, and the cost of living was lovely. The quality of so I think it was like $4, and I got 2 protein bars and 2 liters of milk, and that
Wow.
was wild. That is a wild amount of food to get for, say, 2. I think I meant 4. Anyhow, the point is still an incredible amount. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for locals, the prices were really good. Tourists, not as much. But I'll tell you this: if you have not been to Athens, it is such a worthwhile place to go. The history, the Parthenon is just phenomenal. But all the ruins around, and you can go to Oracle
Yeah.
of Delphi, down to the Temple of Poseidon. Just so many cool things to do. One highlight after the tournament, because I stayed another day, I went to the Sunken Lake, which is south of Athens. It's kind of a little resort area, and it's kind of brackish water, so some fresh, some salty, and it was just so fun. Like the little fish are nibbling on you. They have all kinds of chairs, and it was just really cool. A nice way to relax after the tournament.
That's cool. Did you meet Poseidon?
Yeah, he's a good dude. He's going to join our squad next time.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, so let's jump to the Blood Bowl part. Obviously, this was a really big event. Just mechanically, like in terms of like how did the event run? Did it run smoothly? Were there any hiccups? Like were like pairings easy to find, that kind of thing?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it ran about as smooth as one could ask for. The food tickets thing was a little odd. I will say there was a lot of space between rounds, but I hear that's more of a Euro convention. As far as them accomplishing what they wanted to with it, yeah, I mean, I thought they did what they needed to. Organization was pretty spot on. They were quick to tabulate. I thought everything was nice. It was a well done tournament.
Yeah, they did a super phenomenal job. I would say everything was so good that, I mean, it's hard to top it. The one thing that was a little difficult is just the audio, but that's almost every tournament when you have a lot of people in a big hall. If you weren't up towards the front, then you couldn't hear as well. So luckily we were up towards the front, so it wasn't so big of a deal.
Yeah. Is there anything from the way it ran that you would like to see more often in US tournaments?
I mean, I'm just gonna speak bluntly, and I would like to see more conventional rules packets, to be honest. Like the way it was run from a rule standpoint, it did some unique things, but I really liked how close to the core game it stayed. Didn't introduce any like super special secret made up star players. Didn't have the ball bite your nutsack once every six like rolls. It was lovely. It was nice. I like theming. I like interesting variants inside my tournaments. But I really like when I show up to 11s. I wanna have something that's as close to the core experience as possible, and I want something where maybe it's more dominantly decided by coaching decisions rather than extra introduced variants.
Right.
So I liked that. It was nice.
Yeah, exactly how a Eurobowl, this competitive nation against nation tournament should be run with some really good core rules. I would say one thing that's just really unique about the European tournaments is the social activity. I mean, it's good in the States, but in Europe, everyone's just so nice. They want to meet. They want to meet Americans certainly, but just everyone's really cool to hang out with, to talk to, and it's probably the tournament where they're most known for swapping jerseys. So you'll get all kinds of people. Hey, do you want to swap jerseys afterwards? And it almost makes you feel like you want to bring 10 jerseys so you can swap with more people. And a couple of our guys did bring several.
See, the only comparison I can come up with was swapping the bracelets at raves, but it's not quite the same thing.
What to say?
All right, let's get to the gameplay. So you're starting off the events. I'm assuming they do all the callouts. You finally get your pairings. You're sitting down to round one. What'd you see? What'd you feel?
Well, we actually played Hungary, who we had played 2 years ago in Malta, and we actually lost to them. So I'm first of all thinking, okay, this will be a great rematch. I think we have a better squad this time. Let's give it a go. We had already known some of the guys there, so that was cool to reconnect for those who had been before. But you always have those early jitters. This is really here. We've worked all year for this, and now it's come up, and so there's always those jitters to start the game. And once you're in, it's just like a normal Blood Bowl tournament, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I'm a neurotic rat bastard, so like I'd done a lot of research on like I'd watched through some of his like fumble practice matches and kind of had an idea of what to expect. So I went in there knowing I felt confident about my ability to coach well in by comparison, but it's a tough matchup, and rats are rats, right? So like sometimes you just go and you eat 3 cas. So he took he took his LOS blocks, he took his blitz. I had 11 rats on the pitch still, and then I took a big breath and I was like, okay, we got this, and just went forward and felt good about what was happening. It was nice. It was a good tournament, a really good opening round.
Yeah. So would you say overall, like gameplay wise, it went pretty smooth? No like crazy outlandish results or anything?
We ended up crushing that round.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I served like 5 dark elves, so yeah, it was a comfortable 2-1 grind.
Okay.
I think
It was a good round to start with. Most of us won, a couple of draws, but we just had a lot of confidence coming out of that. And the one thing that was a real eye opener for some is in a squad based tournament, you don't have to win. You can keep the draw, or even if you lose, if your team's doing okay, like it's still fine because we'll still win. So talking during the play was really important for us to just see where we're at. Does it look like you're gonna win, draw? And sometimes you'll even ask, do I just need to hold for the draw, or do I have to play for the win? Because if you have to play for a win, you could lose, right? So should I just hold the draw? And that was really nice to be able to do. Starting with the first round, everyone got that out of the way. A couple of draws, I'm disappointed in my draw, but don't worry about it. It doesn't matter because we won the squad, and that's all that matters in a team-based tournament.
Cool. Yeah, you want to break down the point system real quick? Like, hypothetically, if everybody won, did you get more points, or was it just a win-loss type thing based on the team?
There are bonus points.
Okay.
Yep. So basically, as an example, if you if you draw, that means, let's say, half your team won, half your team lost, so 4-4, so you would draw. But if it was maybe 4 wins for us, 1 draw, and 3 losses, you still win, even though you just barely did it, right? We win by half a point. But if you have more points, that does make a difference in bonus points at the end. So it's nice to be able to really crush a round. But there were a couple of rounds where, it was super, super close. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. How'd round 2 go for you?
So, individually, round 2 for me was a bit of a wash. I took the coveted, multiple removals immediately, failed most of my sack options and opportunities, and then got blitzed on my 1 turn. And in fact, actually, throughout that tournament, I got blitzed 4 times in my opening 4 games. I was a blitz magnet. I couldn't stop it. I set up against all 4 of them, so it never resulted in them picking up the ball, but it still put me on the back foot repeatedly. This was another example. Actually, in this game specifically, I got blitzed twice this game. The first one, I didn't need any blitzes. So this guy blitzes me twice. I'm already eating a bunch of removals. It's a pretty tough wash, and I'm lucky to basically pull out a draw. I do a withdrawn offense, more conventionally known as the DACA, and I pull everybody back in my own offense in the second half, hold out for an 8-turn score, and solidify the best I can get out of that match, a draw. Anything more is just playing to lose. So, yeah. How about you, Brian? How did your match go?
Well, and it turned out that's all we needed, right? I had a great second round. We played Portugal, and they're typically a pretty competitive squad. I had a great second round. It wasn't even close. There were a few of us that were in the same situation. So it was another one where starting out, you always worry. We know these guys are good. They have some great coaches. During the round, I could just look to see who was doing okay, who was crushing it, who wasn't. And I knew about halfway through that we were going to win the round. So that feels really good as a captain, because you don't want to go up to someone and say, you have to win or we don't get this round, right? So that's really good. So even though that was one of Saul's few draws, it really didn't matter in the end because the rest of the squad did really well.
Yeah.
I was happy to contribute the draw to the squad at the end of the day. What we did together was phenomenal. Period.
Yeah.
I really like team formats. I've played them in a few different games, and it's always fun, especially when they allow table talk, so you can all kind of hop together and figure it all out. But it's also it's a different kind of vibe when you win as a team too.
Yeah.
It can feel lonely at the top, to be cliche, but
you can really celebrate together.
Yeah. The sense of camaraderie is really nice. I will say you also kind of have to accept that. So I've seen in team formats, I've had it happen. We had the guy who won individual tournament champion was also the guy that won wooden spoon.
Okay.
Because that is the kind of thing that can happen. If your teammates submarine your team all the way through, but you keep winning individually, team loses everything, and it happens. This is like that's maybe the only real inherent fault of a squad-based format, but I think the upsides greatly outweigh those problems, right? I do think that it's nice to feel like you're part of something larger than just yourself, and that's great. It's a good feeling.
How was the next round? What were your matchups?
Well, I'll start this time because this was Finland, and last time in Malta we also played Finland and we won. It was one of our few wins as a squad, and so we were going in thinking, okay, this shouldn't be too bad. However, we're playing at the top table at this point.
Okay.
So they had won their 2, we had won our 2 by significant margin, both of us. So, I looked down the squad, and their team was quite a bit different from last time. They had some new guys, obviously. They were doing really well, and Finland finished really well overall. However, I was playing at the top table for our squad, and I had my Zons against Dark Elves. I got slaughtered. I mean, from the go, so I received, he immediately started cage diving, 5 pluses with those Dark Elves. Every time he made it, strip the ball out. I would try to recollect, get the ball, build a new cage. He'd go in again, strip the ball out, and eventually he was able to pick it up and score. So I was immediately down after like 3 or 4 turns. And that's just how the game went. I think I lost that one either 2 or 3 to nothing. So I got tough. And the nice thing is, as I'm looking down, I'm thinking, I just hope I don't cause our squad to lose. We ended up winning the round. And that's where, even if you lose, if your squad does okay, like, you're still golden.
Yeah.
How did you do?
My round was competitive. It was well fought. I thought that my opponent played a really solid position. It was lizards versus rats, and the problem with rats is when an opponent plays a solid position, rats become immediately a lot weaker in feeling. I find, when they get out strength, they get banged down. It was tough. A lot of the same strategies ended up prevailing in the end, and this was maybe my second diciest round in which I had to actually roll. Like, I mean, I had to roll multiple 3+s, to secure things and score. And I don't like it when that happens. That's not my plan A. So it was tough. Got blitzed again. I feel like that's just my life. Yeah. But my opponent played really well. I thought it was solid and it was refreshing. And when he set up against the one turn, which is what he actually properly anti one turn, which is just something that I don't run into a lot in brackets anymore. No offense to anyone, but like in American tournaments, it's rare to see like a proper optimized anti one turn setup. And it was refreshing to have to solve it, and I ended up doing so, and I scored the one turn anyhow, and that's what ended up sealing the game in my favor.
That's awesome. I know you're a very technical player, so I imagine it's just funny hearing you say like a 3+ like sort of ruined your day on that game. Where I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching, they're probably like, "What? It's a 3+? It's a sure thing."
No, I'm rats. I'm spoiled, but multiple 3+s, and by my experience, if I have to roll a 3+, I've just lost my game usually. Like, just my opponent needs 3, 4, 4, 5. He's got it. Doesn't even burn a reroll. If I need a 3, I've lost. That's blood bowl.
We're gonna come up against that coming up as well.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, that's the nature of it, right?
Yeah, I think whenever I actually do use a bribe, I have a 50% chance of rolling a 1 on it, so I get it.
I believe that, yeah.
So one interesting thing, I believe this was the round. No, actually, it may have been a different round. I'll talk about that, I guess, next time. But we did have a really interesting play. In fact, it could have been against Portugal. You'll have to remind me, Sol. We had a situation where all of us were done except for Solomon Nicely, Flying Dingle. And the round at that point was basically a draw. If he draws, we draw as a round. If he wins, we win as a round, as a squad. So we all gather around, and he has to throw with a ghoul on a 5+ after picking up the ball into the end zone to a white. Has to catch it on, I think it was a 3, possibly a 4, and he got it all with no rerolls, and we were just cheering wildly as a squad. It was like one of those truly squad-based moments that was beautiful. Yeah. So it was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Nice.
One of my favorite moments.
I was going into the finish round, so.
Absolutely, one of my favorite moments of the tournament, and it really solidified that. And we ended on we scraped through barely by the skin of our teeth, but we did it, And so we ended the day on the top of the tables and pretty much the talk of the tournament, which was amazing. Because I'll be honest, as far as my assessments and understanding went, nobody thought we were going to podium. Mm-hmm. Most people didn't think we were going to top 10. So
yeah,
it was nice.
We got a lot of attention at the end of day one, that's for sure. We were a top table #1 squad. That felt really good. Now everyone thought, well, it's just short-lived. You're going to play the big boys tomorrow. Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, so that was the final round for that day. How did that evening go? I imagine y'all are feeling pretty good about the performance so far.
Yeah, it was a lovely performance. I mean, what more can you ask for? 3 wins out of 3 is perfect. It's ideal, right?
Exactly. The nice thing is we tried to get together with other Americans. So we had 2 other squads there, European squads. So a bunch of us got together, and the feeling that night was just phenomenal. You know, just congratulating each other, just a lot of camaraderie. That was really fun. So, and then we knew who we were playing the next day, so you could check out your opponent again, see what their records were. So there was some of that strategizing going on as well.
I'm not gonna lie, I skipped dinner. I went home and I studied the tapes on my opponent. I basically
Okay.
just watched 4 or 5 of his fumble games and just kind of paid attention to his habits and tendencies.
You put a little
But
sugar in the
it's
gas
great.
tank.
Maybe it got me excited. He played a really good game. He had very few fundamental issues or gaps, and I knew it was going to be a tough match. I had a couple of ideas that I picked up based on watching some of his starting formations, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, he was good, like, for sure, top quality.
That's cool. So, slept. You wake up. When you wake up, are you feeling any jitters? You still riding the high from yesterday, or how's that going?
I was feeling pretty good. I mean, at this point, no matter how day 2 goes, I'm super proud of our squad
Mm-hmm.
because we had a phenomenal day 1. It's all I can ask for. We'd already surpassed what we'd done in the last Eurobowl, so personally, I was feeling really good. I knew we had to test our mettle day 2, playing against the best squads in the world. So, however it goes, we'll do our best and come what may.
Yeah, I mean, I had a similar mentality. I had acknowledged that even if it was 3 losses today, that we still did something great, that we did well, that we performed, we showed up. And then we had a good team dynamic going on.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I was hungry for more. I wanted to do better, and I'll be honest too. Like, I wanted this match. I wanted to see my opponent. I wanted to play him because I liked what I saw him doing, and I wanted the experience. It's hard to get that level of opposition regularly over on our side of the lake. So it was really, I was excited. I was hungry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, and hopefully, y'all's performance is something that I guess is kind of inspiring to a lot of folks because I know again, like one of the whole reasons I started even doing content creation was people I would hear were intimidated going to tournaments at all, thinking they had to come in and be the best immediately or something like that, and it's not about that. Like it can be fun, but to me, I have the most fun when I'm in an intense match and I know I'm doing my best.
Right.
And that's definitely its own vibe for sure.
The thing I like about Blood Bowl is that there's really not an incorrect way to approach it. Like, yeah, okay, I'm a sweaty tryhard, and obviously I obsess neurotically over this kind of stuff, but it's just as much my environment as it is the environment of a guy playing for like the guy who wants to roll 30 cas and just tee off on people. And if the ball happens to get picked up and scored with, great. If that guy's having a good time, we're at the same tournament. It's the same thing. Everyone's welcome. And the beginner, the pro, the veteran, yeah, the guy who just wants to play gnomes, like the guy who just has an entire specialized gnome themed team. Fine, right? Like that's the beauty of Blood Bowl is like you can kind of set your own parameters and approach from there. And you don't have to be good to start. You just need to have the will to begin somewhere. That's all. It's not about where you are, it's about where you end up. So
Yeah. And I would argue a little bit of humility to start with is probably going to save some of your sanity, if not, make you a more pleasant opponent. But definitely, and that's what I like about the multiple trophy system too. Not to completely rabbit trail, but it's cool that there's different goals you can go for.
Yeah.
I went into an event with the Black Gobbo, and one of the categories was just most fouls. It didn't matter if you succeeded on them, didn't matter anything else. So I'm like, well, I got a game plan, and that was the first time I ever got tabled. So it was a memorable experience on multiple fronts.
I mean, I agree. I also love the trickle down system that is so prevalent in our local tournaments. I think in general, like the idea of making sure that you spread that wealth around and that everybody gets like some kind of individual acknowledgement based upon those previous criteria, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I'm really favorable towards, that I think kind of spreads that sense of community inside of these tournaments. So yeah, absolutely.
It's cool. All right. So you get to the venue, you're all set down. Who are you staring at for round 4, and how'd that go?
Well, I'll start here and then pass it to Saul because we knew after round 3 that we were going to play France.
Mhm.
They're the best. I mean, they've won the last 2 World Cups. They're the best, and so we knew that we had our we had a tough match ahead of us. Now, one thing to note here. I was knocked down to like table 4 after my loss against my Finnish opponent. Now Saul's up at table 1, and you're playing the best coaches in the world at this point. I mean, these guys are like 250s, 260s, 240s. I mean, everyone from top to bottom is like a super powerful coach. So that's where we knew it was going to be tough. Personally, I thought there's no way we can win this match. There's just no way. But you always have your hopes up. So, Saul, how did yours go?
Okay, so small correction. I was on table 2 at the time, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, true story. I was on table 2, which actually bummed me out a little bit because I wanted Olivier. Like I wanted to fight Olivier. Yeah, like, but I was happy with my opponent on table 2 as well. He was 260 rated or so with Wood Elves, and it's an interesting, difficult matchup. Early on in the half, he made a critical mistake and left a double 3-dice Juggernaut Frenzy chain push into chain push, which would create a basing on my strip baller. Basically, something like a 80% play to put the ball on the ground and then a 3+ to go score immediately.
Mhm.
I rolled pow, pow, pow for the first time on that Roger and then was incredibly sad because I could not make the chain happen. But held out the drive as best as I could. I ended up turning him over anyways. I ended up turning over and scoring twice, actually. So I'm up 2-0 at the end of the first half versus this good coach. He had his luck kind of turned around where even though I didn't get the chain push play for the immediate score, he just like snaked the turn after. So it all sorted itself out in the end, and the sack was still on. Knocked the ball down, picked it up, scored, did it again, and suddenly I'm like, man, this is gonna be a really big win if I can hold this out. I think this was the game I was the least proud of my play in, though. I will say, like, I started my play got a little shaky in the second half. Like, I got a little complacent. I left a couple of things on. He capitalized perfectly. I mean, I thought his play was phenomenal. He capitalized perfectly on some openings that I left that I didn't need to. They were unforced errors. And he got everything he wanted out of it. Took the ball right away from me, scored back. It's 2-1 suddenly. And now I got put into a precarious position, so I had to hold out another drive. It's tough to score versus Wood Elves.
Yeah.
He ended up doing a leap sack, knocking the ball loose, picking it back up on a blodger, just running through with everything. Made a lot of dice rolls. It all went very well. But also, I shouldn't have even been in range. So I felt like I was throwing my own game away. I turned it around with the strip ball gutter again, took the ball back out, created a chain push to split and separate, picked it up, handed it off, ran down, got 3-1. My opponent quick scores on me. He goes 2 in, rolls some hard dice to do it, and I have 2 turns left. So let's just kind of fast forward. It's 3-2. I have 2 turns to hold on to this ball, so I retreat into my own half, pick up the ball, and walk it into a meat cube. My opponent has 1 turn left. I had attempted to blitz off his catcher in the upper left corner in that screenshot, but I did not get the knockdown. And unfortunately, he had a Frenzy War Dancer, so I created a screen, but I shouldn't have left that gutter in the bottom right corner. I needed to swap it with the one of Linos or a thrower. There needed to be strength 3 in that corner to make it harder, because the Frenzy Dancer has a multi-layered chain push into the catcher, who can then block off and create a knockdown. And I should have seen that. That was actually a really rookie play on my end. He went for it and then failed. And I ended up holding out 3-2 there. But yeah, Frenzy War Dancer. Tell your friends. Very good piece. A lot of options. And that was this was, I think, my least proud play. I was really unhappy with my decisions this game. But it turned out okay in the end. This was maybe the game in which the dice were the best to me, I think.
Well, so I played against Jean-Francois Very who is known on the NAF as Jeff. And this guy won his first NAF tournament in 2006. So he's been playing for a while. He told me that he'd been playing over 30 years total. So no slouch. He had a vampire team, and I just knew it was going to be a tough match. And sure enough, it ended up being probably my most competitive match. You know, I got blown out in round 3. That's fine. You know, it is what it is. But this was just every play trying to escape those vampires. It was tough. So what happened, he received, I kicked to him, and I forced him to score relatively quickly. And he told me, like, I did not want to score before turn 8. But I forced him to score in, like, turn 5, maybe 6. So I had at least 3 turns, and I was just able to do a double screen, try to get up the pitch. I was able to score in my turn 8. So I was really happy about that. In the meantime, my focus was to try to take out those catchers, because those guys are so fast. They can hypnogaze from anywhere. I ended up casualtying both of them, and they both regen. So we got them both back for the second half. So that was a little disappointing. He had a full team. I had a full team, luckily. So now he's kicking to me. So as we're playing the second half, I'm trying to just stall, trying to keep his strip baller away. And someone comes up to me and says, all you need to do is get the draw, and we'll win. Like, okay, that sounds great. So I'm thinking, I just got to make sure that I don't let him get the ball and score. Then the same teammate comes back a little later and says, we need you to win in order for us to draw. That completely changes everything, but that's why you're talking, right? But I wish I hadn't heard that last news, because that kind of put some pressure on.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of stalling for the draw, now I have to play to win just to get the draw. So at that point, he's basically able to hypnogaze and strip the ball out almost every turn. So I focused on that strip ball player. I was able to foul him, just stun him, but enough to get away a little bit. And it came down to where I'm the last player, and all the teams around me now. There's a play where I have no reroll. I'm able to pick up the ball, and if I go for it a couple of times, I'm outside of his ability to come and blitz me. He can still come and tag me, but he can't blitz me.
Mm-hmm.
But with no reroll, I thought if I can just get a good enough screen, I may not have to go for it, because if I fail to go for it, it's over. Right? I have no one else who can score, and I'm out of distance. So I decided not to go for it. In hindsight, I probably should have, but you never know. I just figure he also has no rerolls, and his roster was 4 rerolls and a leader, so 5 total. He's used them all at this point, trying to stop me. So I'm thinking, first of all, he has to roll multiple times just to get to me. Then he has to dodge away and do all kinds of things to hit me and stop me from scoring. So I'm thinking, I'm going to let him fail the dice.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out he got everything he needed. No bloodlust fails, no hypno fails, no dodge fails. He gets my ball carried down after hypno-gazing him, so he has no skills. And that ended up being a big moment, because in my turn 8, and this is where everyone's around, I have to pick the ball up on a 4, which I did. All I need to do is dodge out with dodge on a 3+. Back to John's comment, all I need is the 3+, and I got a 1 and a 2. So I go down. It ends up being a draw, and because I didn't win that match, we ended up losing as a squad.
That sucks.
So that was a real heartbreak. That was my moment of shame in the tournament, because I should have probably went for it those couple of times and gotten outside of his ability to blitz me. But I thought he'd fail something, but then that 3+ dodge, failing that was really a punch in the gut.
I don't think you should view it as a moment of shame, though. I think that's short-sighted. How many other rolls could have gone wrong somewhere in any number of these games, right?
Well, also,
I mean, how many 3s did I make throughout that, right? So it's not.
It's statistics.
Not
I mean, if you pick the statistically sound option and it fails, at least it failed in the best way.
Do you want to play the odds game, we would probably not even be taught. We would probably not be 3 wins in day one based on the odds, right? I mean, that was a dodge, a pickup, a pass, all on 3s and 4s throughout, and a 3+ catch, no reroll for any of it. So it
Yeah.
evens out in the end. I wouldn't take it as any personal shame.
Well, what's interesting is as I finished my round and was talking to all the teammates, there were a couple of others, including Aaron, who said, I had the win if I hadn't have quad skulled in the last turn. Like, oh my God, quad skulls to finish the round. That's terrible. And then someone else was like, yeah, all I had to do was get like a 2+ and I would have won my round. So, the fact that we were so close to beating France was actually, really impressive. We lost by half a point. It's pretty good. Yeah. But was the one loss for our squad. So that took us all the way down to table 2.
Cool. All right. So, at this point, was your confidence shaken at all? I know you said you were already happy that you had outperformed what you had done previously, but would you have anticipated how it ultimately ended up at this point, do you think?
Well, to lose by half a point, I was still pretty happy about that.
Okay.
I mean, we could have easily won that round. And this is what I was hoping as an overall outcome for us taking our squad to Eurobowl this year. I wanted to be able to say that we could compete with everybody and anybody. And we did. We barely lost to France, but they all, thought that it was such a great round. We got pictures with them on the stage. I think they were super impressed that we put up such a good fight.
That's good. I mean, ultimately, it's again cliche, but like as long as you're happy with your performance, it's whatever. But in this case, it's like measurably still incredibly strong.
Yeah.
What did round 5 look like? How did it treat you? With the pair down.
All right, I'll jump in on this here. Round 5, I was in a Skaven mirror, and so I was actually really excited at that prospect, especially given the fact that, like, hey, it's the only even matchup I'm gonna get. You know what I mean? Like, you can have debates about anything else. How do you feel about rats versus dark elves? How do you feel about rats versus orcs? But like rats versus rats, it's even. We know that. So I thought, okay, great. This is the first even matchup I'm gonna get. Things are looking pretty good.
How close were your rosters? Were they really similar, or?
Pretty close. I think I deviated from most. So I ended up deviating from maybe the majority of rat coaches in one key place. I did not take an isolated strip ball. I stacked him with wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
The wrestle strip was a little bit less common in that I didn't see it from opposing coaches. Wrestle strip, for me, was a saving grace repeatedly throughout this tournament. And I'm really happy with the decision that I made with it. So that's the way in which our rosters differed. He was also double mighty blow as opposed to tackle.
Okay.
So I had some advantages with blodge and survivability if I left anything open, but as rats, you don't want to see multiple mighty blow on the opposing team. He had 2 to my 1 on mighty blow, but I wasn't exactly eating more than a single hit like a turn anyhow. I hit him about as many times as he hit me, and then I just got a mouthful of 6 Kaz just immediately, just really brutalized, absolutely destroyed. I did, however, manage to score out late on my offense, and long story short, he scores back. What was it? That's right. So he scored on his offense as well. I one-turned him with 6 rats, and then I held out for I think 6 turns is the most I could get out of my second half with God, I had nothing. I don't even know how I did that, but I held out for 6 turns. I threw it in, and rats 3-turned me. Imagine, it wasn't. Right. I was a non-obstacle in that one. I had nothing left to punch back with. I removed 1 rat the entire game. So, Oof. Yeah, it is what it is. That happens. That's Blood Bowl too,
Yeah.
But I was happy with what I pulled out of it because I think in many cases most coaches would have lost that game. So I was happy with my play. I was happy with my decisions, and honestly, barring my armor and injury, I was happy with my dice. So it was not bad.
You probably just as an individual human have more rat games under your belts. Like you're probably like top couple percent in the entire world at this point. So I know you're,
I think I have about 700, yeah.
yeah, maybe a bit of a specialist, I think is fair to say.
Wow.
Total one
That's
trick.
impressive. So my round 5, super fun. I mean, just such an awesome opponent. We played Denmark, and for those who don't follow along with all this, Denmark are the defending champions of the Eurobowl. So they just killed it last time in Malta. They beat France. I mean, so this is a good team. We had played them as a squad in World Cup a couple of World Cups ago, and just great opponents. So they were awesome. I played against Lizardman. He's been playing for 30 years, so kind of a theme here. And we had a great match. Ended up being 1-1 going into the second half, and I'm receiving again. So similar to my last match. Now, remember, in my last match, I drew because I failed that 3+ dodge with dodge. Okay, so now we're going in. I'm now going against his Lizards. I'm caging up pretty well. I'm able to keep the ball away. But I have to get to a point where now I can get in scoring range. So I do this in my turn 7, where now I'm there. I have an easy way to score. All I need to do is dodge away one of my guys to make a full screen. So there's no way he can even get to me. And of course, I fail that dodge. Again, it was like a 2-2. So that hurts a lot, because now he does have an option to get to me. So his turn 8, I guess it was his turn 7, because I received in the second half. He's able to move some of my guys out through some blocks, able to blitz my ball carrier with the Saurus, does not get me down, but he gets me against the sideline. So I have this image that I sent to you. You may want to show here, but it might be fun for those listening to actually take a look and see, what would you do in this moment, right? Maybe you can do something better than what I did. But what I ended up doing, he now has a column next to my ball carrier. I'm on the sideline. There's no way I can go around. I need all like 8 squares of movement to score. So my only option is to go through. So what I do is I dodge a blitzer out, and I end up, my blitzer has frenzy, which most would say that's not a great skill on a blockless blitzer. It ended up being so good multiple times, including this time where I was able to surf his kink and then use my hit and run to for free move away. So that was good. Now it's still going to be tough. I have 4 pluses now to dodge through. I ended up getting a 3 and another 3 to fail and not get my 4, which, it was going to be tough anyway, so I can't feel bad about that. I really felt bad about the screen the turn before, but that ended up being a draw for me. Turns out, though, that's all we needed, because our squad won again. So, and that felt really good. Denmark, just a great opponent. They have some awesome coaches. So to beat Denmark was a real win for the U.S.
Cool. Yeah. It sounds like you need to learn to pass your dodges at key moments. But other than that, it sounds like a pretty good performance.
Don't we all?
Exactly.
You always have the option to punch them instead of dodging.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot try.
Yeah. One of the themes that I'm hearing here, and it's something I've kind of, I don't know, this year's been a big year for me trying different stuff and to learn different things. It's just, even though statistics exist and there's something you should definitely reference, you still have to respect possibility. And it's the difference of being unblitzable versus them having to make a million dodges to get to you. Like, not being able to is always going to be better than, well, the odds are really bad if you can end up in that position.
Well, and that's the thing about the squad-based tournament as well, is we all have to take different teams. So we had orcs, we had necro, we had chaos dwarves, we had undead. So Sol and I, with Skaven and Amazons, you're not going to be the strength of your team, right? So you're going to have to dodge sometimes. And that's the thing against lizards. I was hitting wherever I could, but you're going to have to dodge away from those dang sources to be able to build your cage up and do what you need to do to get away. So, for the risk, for sure.
Yeah. All right. You're going into the final rounds. How are you feeling, and how did it go?
Go
At
ahead,
this
Sol.
point, I think at this point I was 3 wins, 2 draws. My main focus was I wanted to go undefeated in Eurobowl.
Mhm.
And I knew my next opponent was tough because Olivier straight up walked up to me and in explicit detail told me how difficult that guy was because that guy just beat Olivier.
Okay.
So I knew I was in for a tough matchup on the top of the table versus I want to say Switzerland. Is that right? I don't want to
Switzerland,
miscredit.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Another awesome
Um,
team. I mean, they're always
yeah.
up there.
And my game gets underway. It's Rats versus Orcs, which I actually don't like that matchup, to be honest with you. I think that Rats can feel quite powerless when Orcs hold correct position. If they get it, even just a couple simple removals, it can become a real slog and a nightmare. I managed to separate and split his team, though, rather early on and had basically ushered in a forced score for 4. He tried to hold out an extra turn, but made a really understandable mistake. Like, by all means, his play was good, but he left on kind of like in game 4, he left on a frenzy push into a chain push
Mhm.
that would open up his screen. And the Roger went off successfully. I opened up the screen and I blitzed his carrier who was in Chunt's column. It's the column just one off of the side. Actually, no, I'm sorry, he was 2 away. So I blitzed him, knocked him down into Chunt's column, and he's just, all of his orcs are based up here. He has 1 line rat holding up 3 orcs upstairs. They're too far away to do anything.
Mhm.
It's a crushing position, and the ball lands adjacent to the sideline. And I go to pick it up, and it fails, and I'm great with that because the failure is a 3 and 8 of just going off sides, and then that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is he has to score next turn, which is great. We're Rats. That's the plan. The ball goes off sides, and all I needed to do is go 5, maybe 6 squares in any direction. And I have a gutter ready for a full breakaway the turn after. He's completely occupied. He is caged in here. Nothing can get to this ball. It goes 3 squares, lands on my Rat Ogre, who scatter catches it in 3 tackle zones, which is just so good for me. Love that. Very exciting. I then proceed for 2 to 3 turns to get into a mud wrestling contest with orcs trying to hold out, keeping the ball away from them. And I actually managed to make a breakaway handoff with the Rat Ogre, hands off to a gutter runner. I've burnt all my rerolls, keeping the position alive as well as I can, but unfortunately we're down to the risk of like a turn 8. If he scores on 8, I'm in a world of trouble, right?
Mhm.
So I make the handoff, I make the dodge, I run up. I need 3 rushes to score on his offense, and I just fail immediately because I need 2,
Oof.
so they're not going to come. And then he punches my Rat Ogre, and it dies.
Okay.
Period. I'm down to 10 rats on cap. I have no scoring options. He has no shot at scoring either. I've successfully held off his offense. Second half kicks up, and I set up another withdrawn offense. I'm going for a DACA. I'm trying to retreat and hold out. I need to score in 8 turns. If I score in 4, or I score in 5, or I score in 2, I'm just going to lose.
Mhm.
I pull everyone back. I get the ball somewhere safe, and I only have 1 gutter on the LOS ready to make the dodge. To complete everything else, he snakes and dies. He's gone. Just gone.
Oof.
Just gone. So now I'm down to 9 rats versus 11 very healthy orcs, and my opponent was as good as they said he was. His positions were phenomenal. He really didn't leave a lot on. It probably forced me to roll the hardest I have in a long while. I had no 4s, but definitely several 3s again. Like, I mean, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 over and over again. And I had to roll my ass off. I mean, I had to roll some phenomenal dice. I held out till I think turn 6. I found a breakthrough. I cut through the field and isolated the ball, and you could sense like frustration from him as he was starting to count his own odds, kind of slimming away.
Mhm.
But he did force my score on the 7, giving him 2 turns back. He
Yeah.
was 1 reroll. I have at this point 6 rats to my name, so like nothing. I can't stop anything. I have 6 rats. The ball goes midfield, and he just sets up a full Vanga bus in my own half, and there's nothing I can do about it. He makes the pickup, has to re-roll it, but makes the pickup, makes 2 rushes, makes the handoff, makes another rush, makes 3 rushes for everybody to get the Vanga bus together. Like, everything is completely fine. It's all completely fine. I still have another shot. I have the 5+ cage dive with the wrestle strip ball. I roll a 1 and a 4. It fails. He has 2+, 2+. Oh, no, he had 1 reroll left. Yeah, that's right, because I remember this last moment. So he has 1 reroll left, actually. And he has 2+, 2+ to score out the game for the draw. And he rolls the first one. It's like a 3 or a 4. It was high enough. And then the second one comes in, and it's a 1, and he immediately scoops up his dice and gets ready to reroll. And I put my hand up. I say, hold on a second. And I look him in the eye. I say, I want you to savor this moment. He slams the cup down. The 1 hits, and I pop the fuck off, and he snakes the tripwire, and that's how I won my game.
So your strategy was for him to roll a 1, and your strategy succeeded.
Yeah, for sure. I
do that every game.
That was probably my most cinematic moment for sure, at least as far as that tournament went. And you know what? I'll tell you something. I didn't feel bad about it, because all that business in the first half, that should have been me up 1-0, damn it.
Yeah. Well, statistically, it's going to happen eventually, too, so just a good time for you for it to happen.
I mean, but how many 3s did I roll before that, right? And then that's Blood Bowl in a nutshell.
Right.
I did walk over, though. I congratulated him. I said, thank you for the match. You played really well. I'm sorry that was unfortunate, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a big tiebreaker, I think, for our squad in that round, because when that came down, Brian, didn't you say that at that point that it solidified our win?
It did, yeah. So going to my side now, I'm just completely spent, because I had just 2 amazing matches that this close to winning ended up in draws. I'm playing against Dark Elves again, and that's not a great matchup for Zons. That was my 1 loss, was to Dark Elves. He scores right away, and then I'm able to score to equalize. But in the meantime, I'm starting to get some guys out. I have a Fowler, and so going into the second half, I had a couple of turns where I got out at least 2 players per turn. So by turn 13, he only has maybe 6 guys, and he says, there's no way I can stop you at this point, so I can see you.
Wow.
Really? Okay, well.
Yeah, you make that. Wow.
I'm thinking, okay, I don't mind that, because there's, I should have thought a little more about it, because bonus points do matter.
Right.
And I could have potentially done more, but, foul casualties don't count. That's what I was getting for the most part. But he said, let me just try this one crazy move, and if it doesn't work, then I'll concede at that point. So it didn't work. And so we conceded by turn 14. And so I'm
nice.
like, okay. Problem. So I'm done early. I'm walking around, I'm taking pictures of the squad, and that's where I'm able to tell everybody, hey, this is all we need. So we were to the point where when Sol won his match, that did solidify it for us. Yeah. And ended up that we won that round 5-3, which, by the way, had France drawn their match against Poland, which that came down to a last second pass and catch as well.
Mm-hmm.
We would have passed them in terms of bonus points.
Nice.
We just needed a 5-3 win, and we got it. Turns out that they did get the reception, so France barely beat Poland, and we pulled out the second place. So, but
France played a great tournament.
It was amazing. So when I finished my match, and I'm just looking down, opponents both sides, and my squad mates, I just had the biggest smile on my face. Regardless of what happens, because we're at the point where we still could win the whole Eurobowl, depending on what happens. But I was just so proud of my squad mates. We came and did what we needed to do. We showed that the U.S. could compete. We all did really well. No one on our squad did less than 50%. We all had, at least tie or winning records. And we had said going in, if we can all do that, if we all have winning records, we're going to do really well. And we did. So that was just super proud moment for me.
as far as I'm aware, I think this is the best showing the U.S. has had overseas. Maybe I'm mistaken. You could correct me.
Oh yeah, for sure, for
I,
sure. And
I was
remember,
real proud of
we
our
were only invited to
genuine run.
Eurobowl last time, two years ago. That was the first one we were even invited to.
Mhm.
So to take second place in our second Eurobowl, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Well, I know from behind the scenes, just from talking to TJ, y'all were. When did you start prepping for this? Because I know for the team selection process, it was like a whole thing in waves of, competing and stuff like that. How many months of prep would you say you specifically put in for this?
Yeah, it's interesting. We started tryouts January of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then so we had all the tryouts. It was really cool to watch all the games. We had about 30 tryouts. And then we had practice matches. We practiced against Canada, and then all of us kind of did our own practicing. So I think in one way or another, we were all preparing all year for this since January. So
Yeah. And then Soul
Yeah, I've
watched
been
every replay on Fumble multiple times into the wee hours of
maybe
the night.
depends on the situation. For me, the biggest thing was that I'd been a little rusty after Chaos Cup because I hadn't done anything particularly relevant for a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I pushed through the tryouts, things went well. But I think I really started attempting to dial in and doing more hard analysis about 3 months out behind the tournament release. And that's where privately I started trying to shake off a little bit more of the rust and really get my fundamentals ironed through. I took in a lot of practice games with other prominent members from the online community overseas as well. And I worked together with TJ. I was part of the Canadian practice as well. Um, yeah, something along those lines, I would say.
It's cool. Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from this last round is a lot of people complain about concessions on Blood Bowl 3, but apparently even the best do it, so now everyone is justified in conceding on Blood Bowl 3.
I've never conceded one time.
I don't recommend it. Nope. Finish the match. Now the reality is, like, I'm okay with it in this case
Mm-hmm.
because it was kind of over for our match at least, and we
Yeah,
had a
sure.
chance to just kind of talk and soak in the rest of the game, so I didn't mind at all.
Right.
But it's a little bit different in a squad-based tournament. If you're in an individual tournament, don't ever even consider it. Like, finish your
Yeah.
game, let your opponent have the bonus points. Like, just be a good sport. That's the way Blood Bowl's played. This is a fun game, not a serious game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a silly game.
To be fair, too, mine's coming from a place of non-judgment. If somebody wants to concede, I understand.
Yeah. Well, I was
We all
also
go
being
with
completely not serious there.
hardship.
I'm just trying to contribute what little bit I can here.
Fair.
I'm in the
But, I
presence of
just
genius.
I don't want to come off as overtly negative to somebody for the grand crime of walking away from an online game sometimes.
Yeah.
It's
I've
fine.
only got a couple questions left for you. But real quick, you want to just run down your roster, kind of give an overview, what your thought process was, and if you would change anything kind of psychically having known your matchups beforehand?
Okay, yeah. Do you want to go first, Brian?
Yeah, sure. So, as mentioned, I took Zons. I took a block and a guard blocker. I think that's the way to go. You got to have someone with that strength 4 block ability, but a guard is just so necessary. I took a block blitzer, and as I mentioned earlier, I took a frenzy blitzer, which I tested that. I also tested a wrestle. I loved using the frenzy, especially with that hit and run. Like, he'll never get surfed.
Yeah.
So it's a really nice move. It's a nice synergy. Even without the block, my philosophy is, if I'm going to surf someone or if I really need to get down a blodger, I'm going to re-roll both end anyway. So I had 2 re-rolls plus a leader. I also had a wrestle and a block line woman, and I had a dirty player with a bribe, and that in some games was really helpful, including that last game. That's what caused the concession, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I would have changed anything. I mean, I'm really happy with how it went. I mean, a couple of failed dodges, and those succeed, and I'm 5-1. That one game against Dark Elves, nothing I could really do. When you're making your 5 ups to break cages, like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I was really happy with my roster.
I had hemmed and hawed regarding my roster for a long period of time, up until the tournament. There were lots of things I was evaluating and different approaches that I wanted to consider making. I was looking at maybe picking up the extra skill package to pop block onto the Roger and pick up a sidestep gutter to compensate for the difference in the one turn. But the loss of the wrestle strip means I would be one turning more often. There were a lot of different considerations. I was never entirely happy with what I could do with the roster because it was 13 rats, no Apo, which is not bad. It's just acceptable,
Right.
you know? In the end, though, I think, at least as far as the performance for Eurobowl went, I don't think I'd change anything. I mean, the round in which I ate 6 Kaz, I don't think having one more rat or one more Apo would have really made a relevant difference.
Mm-hmm.
And up until that point, up until round, what is that, 5, I had taken maybe 4 Kaz up to that juncture. So, like, my team held together really well. I minimized the blocks that I was taking in. It was good. And the fact that so I debated, between a bunch of different things, but I was happy. The wrestle strip played out and sacked at least half a dozen times, put that ball on the ground for rats. So that was hands down the best decision I could have made, and I was really happy with it. It continued. I had concerns initially. I had concerns that maybe it wouldn't hold up to the European standard. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure.
But I agree, Sol. That's the way to play Skaven. That wrestle strip combo, it's so deadly.
Yep. I will never not take it when available. Like, I think it's too good.
Honestly, since I talked to you after you won Chaos Cup, I've copied that multiple times. I even threw Wrestle Strip on a Tomb King's lineman, and it's silly, but you leave it in the back, and it's like, hey, have fun. It exists. You have to deal, and it performed.
Yeah, it always does. It always does. It's always the cornerstone of every tournament that I play with these rats. Like, some people lean into the rat ogre, some people lean into, the blitzers, but I mean, a lot of people lean into the various gutters, but I will say, like, yeah, there's the best rat on that team is the wrestle strip by far. Like, it single-handedly has won me so many games and has been the sole source of, like, my dominant record with them over NAF in the last couple years.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, they are, I guess, at this point fairly retired, right? There's not a lot of incentive to play them anymore. I think I can get like a point for a win and lose 15 for a loss. Very fun.
The leaderboard is all that matters.
Something like that. Maybe if I find a sneaky opportunity where I like my odds, I can try and push for #1 in the world. But we'll see. That's another story for another day.
Next Eurobowl, another chance.
Next Eurobowl, you're getting Dark Elves. Sorry. You'll like them. They'll be nice, I promise.
All right. So you've finished your games. Obviously, Brian, you had the concession. You knew you're locked in. It comes to the awards ceremony. You get called up. What's running through your head? Like, I heard the applause and people were going crazy.
Well, I'll tell you this. As we were playing that second day, we had so many people come up and say that they were rooting for us.
Nice.
Which was not, I mean, that was completely surprising, right? But they wanted us to do well, especially, they've seen how good the Euros are. We've been trashed on a lot in the US, that we're just not quite up there, not up to par.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of surprising to get that many people pulling for us. And when we walked up and just simultaneously a chant of USA, like, I thought it would just be us doing that, right? Like our teammates open, but it was a big group just chanting USA, which was really cool to be a part of.
I think for the longest time, my main goal has been to improve the meta In the broad scheme of American Blood Bowl, I really want us to continue to rise to those standards and do well. It was a personal, within Blood Bowl at least, point of pride and accomplishment to have firsthand had some kind of pull in the views on American equity inside of Blood Bowl, like the idea that we can compete and that we are a threat. I'm very proud of everyone in our squad and everything that we did.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah, great squad, great camaraderie. We had a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll do it again. Now, speaking of that, we will have new tryouts coming up in January again, so we'll be preparing for next year, which is actually in Hungary, Budapest. So, anyone listening who wants to throw in the ring, we'll be sharing how to do that in Chaos Cup and then on the US Blood Bowl page.
Cool. On that note, was there any shout outs we all want to give? I know obviously y'all both attend and like run tournaments and everything. Anything that's coming up that you want to talk about real quick?
I want to thank TJ Jackson for helping get me to Eurobowl. He was a direct sponsor and a source of inspiration throughout the entirety of the event. He supported me the entire way through, and he deserves that recognition. He's a hell of a coach and a hell of a person. And other than that, I just want to say thank you to Jimmy Fantastic, Artemis Black, for helping train me through for Eurobowl and for cheering us on the entire time. I mean, they were, unbeknownst to most of our actual American squad, our biggest cheerleaders throughout, and they kept tabs on all of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's awesome.
Other than that, yeah. And thank you to all of our teammates for just playing your fucking hearts out, man. That was a hell of a show. Everyone did amazing.
Yeah, second that. Everyone did their very best. It was awesome to see, and I want to shout out our Europen squads as well. Like they were great to have with us in Greece. We had a great time with them. They did well, and I would absolutely recommend anyone who's interested in Eurobowl and Europen, like, plan for it now because it's such a good time. It's a great European trip, and we can have as many European squads as we can register for. So we will need to register early, but there were 600 of us at Eurobowl this year, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
I just want to call out one other thing that I just thought was a really neat moment. When all was said and done, and everyone was cheering, getting ready for the awards ceremony, I had a couple of ladies come up. And you'll see from the pics here that I was wearing my U.S. hat the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And the organizers of the venue has an autistic son who just loves the United States.
Okay.
And so someone came up and said, do you have an extra one of those hats that you could, give to this autistic son to really make his day? I'm like, take the one that I have. This is all I got, but take it. And just remember that the U.S. is a great country, land of freedom, home of the brave, great people from here. We may not be the best blood bowlers, but we're getting there. But it was just an awesome statement for the U.S. that people in Greece, people all over the world recognize what the U.S. represents, and we should all be proud of that.
It's really well said. Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
Thank y'all for talking to me.
Thank you for having us on.
I hope that, again, anyone who feels intimidated by maybe approaching the game from a more competitive standpoint or anything of that nature can hear stories like this and can understand that really anyone can do it. It's just a matter of putting the time in. It's not just all down to crazy dice. It's not just down to, oh, this person's so good, they're impossible to beat. You just got to put the time in. You got to work at it, and you could be up there too. And it's such a great scene. We've talked about this a million times. There's support whether you're on that top table or not. There's different goals you can achieve regardless, and I think Blood Bowl's a really special game in terms of the competitive scene. it's the only game so far that I can go to a tournament and not do particularly well, but I don't feel horrible walking out. Like, it always feels at least okay, but it makes those wins feel extra special too. And yeah, I hope people can carry some of that energy from this too. But
I said, even for a sweaty tryhard like me, at the end of the day, it's the community that binds us, and that's not something I expected going in.
right,
That's not something that I knew would be a facet of, you know, my life. But I'm grateful for all of, well, personally, Florida Blood Bowl, but in general, all of the friends that I've made through this hobby. And yeah, it really is something, isn't it?
Here, here.
the real Blood Bowl was the friends we made along the way.
Also, that time I snaked, son of a bitch.
And on that note,
Turnover!